This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. The Toadmaster Pro, I've had it a little over a week and a half maybe. I've done plenty of other videos with it. I've tried gigging it, I've tried talking about the things that I like about it and the areas that I think it's really quite strong. Basically, form factor and UI are pretty decent, and maybe some of the better kind of stuff that we've seen in the modelling world up to this point. I've also done videos kind of comparing some of the Helix amp models that there's overlap on, and this video here is kind of looking at some areas that I think are just a little bit weird about what the Fender Toadmaster Pro does. These are things that I imagine might change over time. Maybe these might be bugs or just slight quirks in the feature set of the Toadmaster Pro, but it might be helpful for someone who's thinking about whether or not to buy a Toadmaster Pro. So that's kind of the spirit of the video. Not really trying to bag on the unit too much or anything, just pointing out some bits and pieces that I don't necessarily think either A, should be like that, or B, you should know that that's what it's like right now. The weirdest point of all, I think, is that they've not included anything for bass players, which is, I guess, is a bold move in 2023, isn't it, to say, actually, bass players, you don't need modelling. To be honest, whenever I've played bass, I've always found that actually playing into a real bass amp is kind of difficult to beat. But anyway, nothing for bass players was, I think, kind of on the top of the list of weird things about the ToneMaster Pro. Like all the other modelers, at least give a, you know, a cursory something to bass players, right? As I say, the spirit of this video is more or less that these things could be subject to change, of course. I think Fender are listening to feedback from people that are making videos with the unit. And yeah, hopefully there's going to be some changes to some of these things in the future. So this has been one bit of a nemesis for me. So you see that the mix here is down at 6, and to me that's quite a prominent delay for a mix being down this low. So even at 1 here, and from off to 1 is doing quite a lot of travel. So that's a bit of a weird one. Let's just try with the reverse delay, for instance. Oh. Okay, so the mix here is set at 45. Okay, that's what I would expect. So the mix there at 22 is a bit more like it. Let's try this digital delay mono. Again, that one's a bit more like it. So on maybe some of the delay blocks, you're going to get slight weirdnesses in terms of how that mixes. That one works as well. So maybe it is sort of limited to just that one block, in which case that would be an easy fix, right? So that's one aspect that has caught me out, because the ping pong is one that I've been using. Seamless stuff all works really well, surprisingly so. When you're switching between bits and pieces, that's been actually really good, and I think it's good to see a unit kind of bringing that to life. This song view has been working a bit strangely for me. So you can see currently I'm in song mode. Now to switch these modes, what you're supposed to do is press these buttons. So I should be in preset mode here, but you see that stays saying song unless I do a hard reboot, or I can jump out of it by jumping onto a preset which is not within my songs. So for instance now, but then I can't actually get back into song mode. You see, it just jumps back to preset, and I won't be able to get back into song mode now, even if I do go to one of my presets which is within the song, so JC Eric or JC Lead. So I should be in song mode here, but it just kicks me back to preset, so that's a bit strange. I imagine that's something that their beta teams may have pointed out, but that's just a little bit of a weirdness. So I can fix that up by turning it off and turning it back on. Some other slight weirdnesses. So over here we've got the parallel signal paths, all this sort of stuff, which in and of itself is a little bit strange given how the quad cortex and helix and fractal units now to some extent are way more flexible than what we've got here. This is the most strange thing that I imagine they're gonna fix up. So let's add a block down here, so deluxe reverb. So you can see obviously this is taking up processing power because it's on here, and because we've got those two loaded, we're going to have a limited amount that we can add. So for instance, I can't add any more combos, can I? So you can load these two at a time. Now, what if, for instance, I pressed here and I go back to my series? What happens is, what you'll see is actually not got rid of that other signal path. It's just hidden it from view. Now, I don't know if that will still make sound as if I've got that signal path there. It doesn't, so it's not connected, but now you'll see if I go back to the parallel or series, you'll see it's still there. So that's one of the things that could potentially catch people out, is that you'd have things that are in your signal chain which are hidden because you at one stage maybe had a parallel path. So that for me is a little bit strange. One other thing that I'd really like to see companies, wait, have we got back in song? You know, it says we're in song view when you go back in there. It's a bit strange. Anyway, so one thing I'd really like to see companies figure out is that if I've got an amp and cab block, I start off with an amp and cab block like this, and you've got all your settings and stuff. The amp and cab, this is like it would be in Helix, in that they're kind of linked together. Now, if I wanted to change this to the head version, so I want it to be just the amp head, it forgets the settings that I had on it before. I would really like to see companies pass the settings on so that if you change from like an amp head to a combo or vice versa, because, you know, you might want to do this because you want to add a different cab, or you might do this because you've decided to add a dual amp to this preset, but you want to use the same cab for both heads to save, you know, DSP. Basically, it forgets all of your settings. So, yeah, you kind of start back at square one. I'd like to see a company figure that out. Helix doesn't do it. Fractal, you don't have combo amps in this way. Quad Cortex, again, doesn't have combo amps in this way. But as much as I like the idea that you could load up a combo, I also would like to pass the settings back over if I was just changing it so that it's no longer going to have the cab. So if I'm using the same head again, I'd like to have the settings that were there before. I don't know if that's at all possible, or maybe it's just me. That could be a bit of a weirdness. One other thing that I would like to have seen is in the EQ section. So this is obviously not parametric. For me, I feel like, I guess this is a quick-ish way to do things, and this I really like, you know, sort of rolling things off like that, and then you kind of tell it which output to go on. I would have liked, potentially, like on your Quad Cortex and on your Helix, to have had a bit more control than this. Maybe a real-time analyzer would be really cool as well. Bluetooth, we can pair with bits and pieces, nice. Foot switch options, inputs and outputs, MIDI. There's bits and pieces that I don't think have necessarily been implemented fully yet. Parameter change. Anyway, so I don't think the MIDI stuff is in there really yet, but it'd be interesting to see how that ends up being implemented, if it's anything like the Helix Command Center. But those are just a couple of the bits and pieces that I think are a little bit weird about the Fender Tone Master Pro. I've found it possible to get some tones that I'm quite liking now. It took me a little bit of a while to get there, but I'm not sure that I agree that it's necessarily, you know, not up to par with some of the other modelers. I think it's taken me longer to get there. I think there's some stuff that is obviously missing. It's a bit strange as well. This is one other aspect, that you only get the vibrato channels of all of the amps. So if you don't know, on like a deluxe reverb, on a twin, these kind of amps, there's actually an extra gain stage in the vibrato channels to get enough volume to drive the reverb. So that is why generally on other modelers you have a normal channel and a vibrato channel, because there are actual differences, and as well as the tone stack and bits and pieces like that. So it's a bit strange that there's not more options in terms of having the normal or the vibrato channel, and there's also not a ton of Fender amps in there in general yet, but I'm sure they're going to add more stuff as we go. But yeah, that's just kind of my take on some of the things that are a little bit weird about the Toemaster Pro, if you were interested in that. I'll catch you in another video soon, and I'll try and get these up to the cloud at some point. Oh, that's one last thing. I find these screens quite responsive, but the text-based screens are actually a little bit less so. Maybe it's just because I'm pressing the wrong things, but the text screens are the ones where I'm noticing a bit more lag than anything else. Cancel, for instance, you know, switching between these modes, which doesn't necessarily work hugely well. These screens are where I've found it a little bit more laggy, whereas these are actually really quick. So if you were interested in kind of that lagging aspect, does the touchscreen work? Yes, the touchscreen works quite well. In general, I think the text-based screens, for some reason, rather than the image-based screens, tend to be a little bit more laggy. Cheers.